Hello and welcome to another COREL AFTERSHOT Pro tutorial. The last one I did was on vignetting, and I wanted to do a second video on what I will call manual vignetting, which is using the masking tool. So an adjustment layer, masking, and then sort of manual darkening in a vignette style, but without using the tool, which is more even across all corners or all sides. You can use your manual option to darken just certain areas. And I apologize if you're getting sick of looking at this pretty basic little woodland image, but I'm doing it on purpose because I used this image in the vignetting tool video, and I wanted to make sure to use the same one so that you could compare the effect and not have it be a completely separate image. I hate when tutorials say, well, using this tool is great, and they show you an image, then they say another way to do it is this tool, and then they show you a totally different image, and you're like, well, I can't really tell the difference. So that's why I've done this. Using the same image, I'm going to bring up my layers. I'm going to create an adjustment layer. Now, there are obviously a number of tools you can use if you want to have a bit of a manual effect, and so I will show you a couple of those. I'm going to start off with the brush tool, and then you can, and again, I'm going to show you a couple different ways to go about doing this. One is to simply lower exposure, and I can do that here. I'm going to bring that down by a stop or whatever. And then my intensity is going to go down a little bit so that I'm not going bananas. And I will bring this up size-wise using the wheel on my mouse. Also, you can click and drag this, or you can type in a number as well. And then I'm just going to start painting. And again, this from a sense of, for this video's sake, I've made this pretty strong, and then I will adjust it so that we can see the effect, in a more natural way. So you can see here that I've done this, thrown this on, but now if I make this a more pleasing amount, you can go just a teeny bit. Change my intensity, add in a little more, change this size here. Let's crank this all the way up. Trying to just darken a few areas a little bit more, the very corners. And again, because I'm not doing a million in the exposure in this case, it doesn't show up all that strongly. And let's see, let me go down the edge. See, the nice thing about, now, so here you can see that it's obviously a bit stronger, and I might not like that, so I'm going to undo that one, shift this back to something like this, and do it again, and now it's a little bit more natural, a little more pleasing. So the beauty of doing it manually like this is that you can really customize where the effect is and where it isn't. So let me go off and on, and it becomes subtle if you're not doing it, or if you're not doing what I'm doing. If you're just looking at an image that somebody is showing you, or an image of your own later on, it's one of those things. Whoops, that it's not always obvious that it's happened, right? So this is using obviously the exposure and the masking tool, off and on. Now let's say I don't want to do just straight up exposure, which darkens everything at a certain amount. Let's return this to 0. We can also go and apply the adjustment to the masked off area using any of the other options. I mean, I could literally change the saturation if I wanted to. I can come up here and throw this a little bit. And the benefit of doing this way is that I can maintain some aspects of it while darkening other aspects of it, which can creates a different effect and can create a bit of a fall off, which is, again, can be natural and nice. And then let's say this corner here, let's say this corner here is not, it's a little bit overbearing. I can, because I've just masked it off, I can come here and do erase, and then I can do that, and then I can say, I did too much erasing, I'm going to apply a little bit more, right? And so with masking, you can go back and forth until you get, you know, precisely what you're after look-wise, which is just, you know, again, really nice. The reason why a vignette tool is so nice is that it's quick and easy, and it's obviously very consistent. This, you can get kind of lost in, what have I masked off, what have I not masked off, and you start doing this, you're like, oh, this is wobbly, it's lopsided, or whatever. So just be aware that you know, each tool gets used for various purposes. But like I said, you can, because of the masking and the way that COREL works, you can start to play with the various options in here for making your adjustments. Like I said, like I did the exposure, obviously, you can affect the contrast if you want to, just in those areas. For some reason, you can just do this, right? I can affect just the blacks in those areas, which, you know, is, again, depending on your image, may work, may not work. Obviously, we already did exposure. We've come up here and we've played with the curve here. You can go crazy with this, and you know, that will affect the highlights, transitioning to the darker areas. And in this case, because when you do that, when you add that kind of contrast, it kind of has more of a saturated look. So you can see here how that effect is, in my opinion, not very pleasing. So anyway, this is using the brush in an adjustment layer to do your vignetting. Now I'm going to take this brush off, and we're going to do this guy. So you can do a very similar thing. It's sort of this would be a hybrid version from the vignette tool, and then you can obviously do this kind of thing here. And so I've masked off an area, and let's go back to the same, we'll do the same method. I'm going to do the exposure. Now, obviously, if anyone's paying attention, I've created an object right in the middle that has darkened down because I've masked it off and I've lowered the exposure, which is sort of the opposite of what we're trying to do. See that? Right here? Invert layer. So now I have darkened the outside. And in this case, I can go crazy with the feather. I can go bigger with the object. I can grab points and move it around a little bit and really play with where I want the effect to be. You can drag up, down, all around, etc., etc. It's just like any other adjustment you might do when you're using the masking tool. But again, the key is this invert. It's real handy for that, because you're like, I can't make this work. And using this tool is obviously going to give you a more even transition than the painting tool, because it's real easy with the painting tool to, you don't have the feather effect. So you're not, if you want to have it really transition from a very dark to a light, you have to essentially mask off with the brush one of them, change the intensity, mask off again, mask off again, mask off again, and in a staggered way, sort of a step to slowly build up or reduce down. So using an object such as the polygon or whatever, or a circle, etc., allows you to take advantage of the automated feather that the tool gives you, right? So this feathering effect, let me, so you can see here, this is that transition from the one value to the other value, and this across this feather gives it, obviously more of an even look than if you're doing it with a brush. So you just have to find out which tool is going to work for which area you're doing. And then I'm going to mix the two. I did exposure, plus I'm going to do the level here a little bit, and then you can see the effect, and we'll go off and on. So obviously a little bit darker up here in the corners. This is me not doing a really intense job of trying to make it look great. So that is doing vignetting manually using the layers, adjustment layer, and then the various options here. Obviously I used brush and a curve, but you can, depending on what you're doing, you can obviously use any of them. And then the key here is the invert. Right? If you invert, then you get your darkening where you want it, and then the light part where you want it. So anyway, let me know if that was helpful, and I think that's all I've got for doing vignetting the manual way. If you haven't seen the regular vignetting video, check that out as well. Really useful tool to have for various scenarios. And that's all I got. Talk to you later.